Good morning, everyone. Please rise. Here we go. Philippine National Anthem and the invocation.
Almighty and eternal God, give us a united spirit. Direct our affairs with the greatness of thy wisdom. Give us the vision to see and hear with our spiritual eyes and ears. Grant us thy grace to understand ourselves and our times, and strengthen us not so much to do the things we like, but those we ought to. Help us to see the good in others and respect the individuality of each person, to be tolerant and expect no more of others than what we are willing to do ourselves. Preside over us in our council and grant us the wisdom to make the right decisions and the courage to fulfill them. Amen.
Bayang magiliw, perlas ng silanganan, alab ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisigil. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong pughaw, may dilaghang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng luwalhati, pagsinta mo'y langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya ng pag may mga api, ang mamatay lang dahil sa'yo.
You may now take your seats. All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning to my audience, to the students gathered here at the auditorium of the Malcolm Hall in the University of the Philippines, and to our online audience, good morning. How about we wake ourselves up with a round of applause, everybody? Bright and early this Wednesday, welcome to day 2 of the Manila Bulletin Sustainability Forum with the theme entitled, If Not Now, exactly. When? This is addressing the urgency to go sustainable. Once again, my name is Isa Liton, and the pleasure is all mine to be your host and moderator for the morning session. The afternoon session will be taking over Mika Pineda and Sam Thurman. So, ladies and gentlemen, just like yesterday, we encourage all of you, first, to learn, and number 2, get conversations going about how sustainability practices can actually make a significant impact, first in our country, and of course, overall on our planet. The Manila Bulletin and their corporate partners are here to inspire you, the youth first and foremost, and other organizations as well, to address this urgency of going sustainable so that working together, and let's not forget, you really are the future. So the future is in your hands. What you learn today, you can apply and practice, keep it going for your future. You get to dictate how to move forward. And just like yesterday, we will have an amazing panel of speakers. Yesterday, we tackled energy, retail, and a little bit on hospitality. For this morning, we will have real estate and technology. So those are the industries the speakers are from. So I hope you're ready to listen to them because they will be sharing their initiatives, commitment to sustainability, even achievements in their sustainable practices. And just like yesterday as well, we will have a Q&A after each presentation and then a panel discussion with all 4 speakers with some representatives from the University of the Philippines, our professors, asking questions. And there's a couple of treats going your way. It's not just all listening today, but you also get to take home prizes. If, number 1, you register at the registration area outside. For those online, you can participate by answering the feedback form. We have an online feedback form which we encourage everyone to fill up because when you do, you get a chance to take home our Sustainability Forum tote bag, Coca-Cola products, Cadbury chocolates, and IKEA gift certificates. IKEA is one of our speakers, and They want to entice you to go shopping. That's, of course, sustainability practices right there. Just to make it clear, you have to be physically present to win these prizes, and you need to present an ID, a valid ID at the registration area at the end of the program to claim your prizes. Only those physically present can actually win. If you want to find out how, if you are a winner of these prizes, please log on to the Facebook page of the Manila Bulletin. No announcement of winners today. You have to be online to see if you are a winner via the Manila Bulletin Facebook page. You cannot say walang Wi-Fi. Look to your left, to your right. Those QR codes on the walls are your Wi-Fi access. All right? So, okay. Let me now formally begin our morning session of day 2. And we have quite a notable keynote speaker with us. She arrived very, very early. Everyone knows her as an esteemed public servant who is a sustainability champion. It is evident in her various projects and initiatives in the city of Quezon. Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us today Quezon City Mayor, Mayor Joy Belmonte. Good morning, Mayor Joy.
Good morning. So my greetings to Mr. Philip Conyeng, to Mr. Jordan Tan, to Irish Lorenzo, to my fellow speakers, to Professor Rogelio Alicor Panao, and to Professor Edna Ko, and of course to our young ladies and gentlemen and those of diverse genders, a pleasant morning to everyone. It is an honor and privilege to address you today on an advocacy that is extremely close to my heart. So I'm going to get right through it so that we don't waste time. So when I was first elected mayor in 2019, the need for critical action against the imminent threats to our planet had already become increasingly evident. That same year, Time magazine released a report featuring the places on Earth experiencing the most severe socio-economic impacts from the climate crisis. Not surprisingly, the Philippines was among those at the top of that list. And indeed, our country consistently ranks high on everyone's list of vulnerable places. This alarming state we find ourselves in compelled me to prioritize climate action in my 14-point agenda of governance. Each step we have subsequently taken since I first took office has been deliberate and strategic. As early as a few months into office, we became the first local government to declare a climate emergency, institutionalized through a city council resolution. This became the cornerstone of our aggressive pursuits, empowering us to mobilize resources, both internal and external, to address climate change. This bold step also justified the allocation of as much as 13% of our annual budget, specifically for undertakings that address climate-related issues. Moreover, this declaration paved the way for us to pass an ordinance, creating a climate change and environmental sustainability department, again making us the first city in the country to have done so. This department serves as the linchpin for driving climate action across all levels of our city, ensuring a whole-of-society approach in pursuing resilience and sustainability. Assisted by C40 cities, a global network of 96 megacities that include London, Tokyo, New York, and Buenos Aires, dedicated to urgent climate action, of which we proudly count ourselves as the only Philippine member city, we crafted an enhanced local climate change action plan, or LCCAP for short, which is data-driven and evidence-based, with the objective of achieving a 30% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and net zero emissions by 2050. In addition, the plan emphasizes inclusive climate action that guarantees that no one is left behind. This serves as our compass for enacting policies and executing programs and projects that generate a meaningful impact for all. Consistent with our LCCAP, we are accelerating efforts to reduce the demand for fossil fuels, anchored on the principle of a just transition. Our strategies include expediting and intensifying the shift towards a circular economy, energy efficiency, renewable energy, and sustainable transport. Our transport policy is multifaceted. First, we are promoting active mobility through cycling and walking. Our city's 173 kilometers of protected and shared bike lanes will be expanded to 350 kilometers by year 2028, alongside the pedestrianization of key growth areas and the integration of a 15-minute approach to urban planning and development, the so-called 15-minute city, in which all essential services will be accessible in 15 minutes on foot or by biking for all Q citizens. Quezon City's free bus service, or Libreng Sakay, with over 100 buses running on 8 interconnected routes, is also transitioning to electric buses as part of our Green Fleet initiative beginning next year, as are our city's 1,000 service vehicles, including ambulances and police cars. At present, we have installed an extensive air quality monitoring network with 40 sensors across the city that provide us with evidence-based data on the quality of the air we breathe. Our commitment to reducing transport emissions is one way to uphold the city's air quality standards for the health and well-being of our residents. And I would just like to inform everyone from Quezon City here today that because we have these sensors, please follow us on our official Facebook page, because we put regular notices there pertaining to the quality of the air that we have in different parts of the city. And that should guide you so that when there is threat of smog or haze, you don't panic and request for the suspension of classes right away. You check, ano ba yung air quality talaga sa lugar ninyo, sa paaralan ninyo, and nakasaad dyan. And then you know kung yung intervention ba ay stay home or magsuot lang ng mask. And the city will advise you. But again, the city is focused on data-driven, science-based, evidence-based data. Hindi po kami gumagawa ng desisyon na hindi po nakabatay sa datos. Another strategy is to increase our parks and open spaces. Our ambitious target is to double these numbers from the current 226 to about 500 open spaces by 2030. Ready for bidding is an elevated landscape promenade resembling New York's High Line that will connect two of the largest green spaces in our city, the Quezon Memorial Circle and the Ninoy Aquino Parks and Wildlife Center. Plans to plant 1 million trees together with the private sector are also now nearing execution. With the stationary energy sector contributing roughly 60% of our carbon emissions, our sustainability agenda includes a just transition to renewable energy, which begins with the solarization of all viable city-owned buildings and facilities by 2030. Immediate goals include the solarization of the City Hall compound, our 3 city-owned hospitals, and 50 of our city's 158 public schools by next year. The city's business community is also strongly encouraged to embrace the path to sustainability. Our enhanced Green Building Ordinance, drafted with technical assistance from C40 cities, will mandate the private sector to adopt certain measures, basically those that already existing in issuances and laws, and those that are required by the DOE and the DPWH. While we will have a reward system or incentive system for increased investments in energy efficient technologies, sustainable energy sources, climate resilience, water efficiency and conservation, clean construction and material sustainability, indoor air quality, and waste management and sewage treatment mechanisms. This legislation is scheduled for public consultation by the City Council early next year. So what kind of incentives are we talking about? Basically, since these are companies, tax incentives. So all of the companies here take note. In last week's Future of Work conference, organized by the city, the private sector was introduced to the basic principles of sustainability planning as a precursor to the implementation of this ordinance. So the city government is working with all our businesses, micro, medium, small, in order to help them draft sustainability policies in their respective businesses. And this is a commitment that the city is doing because sustainability cannot just be in the realm of governance, it has to be an all of society approach. Meanwhile, we are recognizing outstanding practices within the private sector through the Quezon City Green Awards, this year's edition having just concluded last month. And well, if I may say so, since I think we should recognize those outstanding ones, the big winner in our Green Awards was SM Malls. They have an absolutely fantastic sustainability plan and are already practicing many of the measures that are in their plan. Other big winners, Robinsons, also Mega World, and Araneta Center did very, very well. This program also covers our barangays, sangguniang kabataan, and barangay-based youth groups. Paraan namin ito para siguruhin na yung kabataan ay aktibo nang nakikilahok sa mga gawaing magsusulong ng isang makabago at resilient and sustainable city. The Green Awards highlights the need for all sectors to participate in climate action towards a sustainable future. In next year's Green Awards, in addition to businesses, youth organizations, we are also going to include hospitals and schools. So sana maghanda na ang pamantasan ng Pilipinas para makalahok din po kayo sa aming Green Awards. To advance our circular economy ambitions, we have spearheaded programs that target the entire waste management hierarchy, from waste avoidance and prevention to reuse, recycling, and recovery. Our internationally recognized Trash to Cashback program encourages recycling and waste segregation at source by rewarding participants with environmental points that can be used to buy groceries and pay for utility bills, like Meralco. This initiative has gained significant momentum within our barangays, and our next step is to expand its coverage to include all schools and private institutions across the city. We have also legislated landmark ordinances aimed at minimizing plastic waste. Since 2019, we have implemented a ban on plastic bags in supermarkets, department stores, and markets. And many, many years prior to that, we already implemented a plastic bag regulatory ordinance. I stress the need for a transitional ordinance because kapag bigla ninyong binan, magkakaroon ng opposition. And dito sa Quezon City, napakahalaga na pagka meron kaming ganitong mga klaseng mga polisiya na makabago, kailangan may buy-in ng private sector or sino mang stakeholders. No? At sa mga public consultations namin, napakahalagang mapakinggan din namin yung mga stakeholders namin. And in order for there to be a smooth transition towards us achieving our goals, kailangan ma-incorporate yung mga suggestions ng mga stakeholders. Kung kaya't nagkaroon kami ng transition ordinance wherein plastic bags were regulated, meaning kung hindi mo dala yung recyclable bag ninyo, nakalimutan nyo, pumunta kayo sa grocery, kailangan nyo ng plastic, you can still avail of a plastic bag, kailangan lang bayaran ito. Pero ngayon, dahil nabago na ang mindset ng mga tao at nang binad na namin ng totally ang plastic, walang nagreklamo, lahat sumang-ayon. Yan po ang pamamaraan namin sa Quezon City. Walang sapilitan, kailangan sama-sama tayong nakikita natin lahat ang mga benefits ng mga ginagawa natin para tulong-tulong tayo. Kasi ang importante dyan, matagumpay ang ating mga adhikain. Kailangan, hindi lang siya paper ordinance kasi hindi po tayo naniniwala sa papogi na mga ordinansang pinapasa lamang para masabing may ordinansa. Kailangan lahat ng ordinansa natin ay naiimplementa natin ng tama. No? So, like I said, in 2019, may black ban na tayo, and disposable materials and single-use plastics are also prohibited for dine-in customers at food establishments in hotels for their in-room items such as shampoos, conditioners, and the like. At kung nakita ninyong may hindi sumusunod, tumawag lang po kayo sa Hotline 122, ang number na kailangan lang ninyong tandaan para sa lahat ng inyong mga pangangailangan sa Quezon City, 122. In support of our crusade to gradually phase out sachets, which clog our drainage systems and pollute our waterways. Kasi ang sachet, hindi yan nare-recycle. Yan talaga, walang bibili niyan. No? Yan talaga basura na panghabang buhay na yan. We launched a program called Kuha sa Tingi, a refilling initiative that incorporates refilling hubs in our sari-sari stores for daily household items such as liquid detergent, fabric softener, multipurpose cleaner, and dishwashing liquid. 30 sari-sari stores were enrolled in the pilot of this program, which successfully prevented over 47,600 sachets from entering the waste stream within the first 2 months from initial implementation. In the business model we created, the seller earns more. Kasi actually, kung bumili ka ng sachet, I'm sorry Philip, mahaba ang aking talumpati, but para maintindihan nyo, if you buy a sachet, 11 pesos yan. Okay? If you do one pump on a recyclable container, 3 pesos lang yan. Okay, so for the same amount, you pay less, no? So yung tindera can now double yung kanyang puhunan. Whereas in the sachet, konti lang ang kanyang profit margin, sa recyclable or refilling, pwede niyang doblehin. And still, that's cheaper than what a consumer would spend, no? So, in the business model we created, the seller earns more, the consumer spends less, and the environment wins. Our next step is to roll out this initiative in 1,000 sari-sari stores within this year. And by the end of next year, 5,000 sari-sari stores will have the Kuha sa Tingi program. We hope that through this initiative, we can gently nudge multinational companies who are currently resisting waste avoidance models. No? So kung may guest ka from Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Colgate, Palmolive, sana mapakinggan nila ang hinaing namin sa local government. It is not enough na kumukolekta-kolekta sila. Kailangan waste avoidance talaga. Let's end the creation, the manufacturing of plastic pollution. Full stop, no? Sorry kung may ma-offend. Okay, but that's just the way we should be going. And they are currently resisting waste avoidance models, and they should start thinking about alternatives to the very environmentally destructive sachets. Another effort we have undertaken is the Vote to Tote program in collaboration with Spark Philippines and renowned designer Zara Juan. Through this program, in the beginning, 70 tons of used tarpaulins, including election materials, yung mga may mamukha namin, were repurposed into stylish and reusable tote bags made by our women deprived of liberty at the Quezon City Female Dormitory, yung mga nasa piitan, creating a sustainable source of livelihood for them and their families. This is really part of the Just Transition program. Nakikinabang pati yung pinaka-vulnerableng sector natin. At ngayon, pagkatapos ng barangay elections, ang katerba na naman ng tarpaulins, so ang dami na naman naming raw materials na pwedeng gamitin para sa programang ito. We are also taking steps towards repurposing textile waste, as global trends dictate that fast fashion will soon threaten our ability to manage this. Many are already calling textile waste the new plastic. Our pilot initiative, the Kilo Store ng Bayan, encouraged City Hall employees to donate pre-loved clothing and other items for resale per kilo in a meticulously crafted pop-up store. This is from a business model made popular in Paris. This effort generated, the first Kilo Store we put up, generated more than 1 million pesos in sales, which was donated to our city's learning recovery program. So, gusto ko lang banggitin, almost kulela tayo sa reading and math, alam niyo yung lahat, no? So kailangan all-out effort talaga tayo to promote learning recovery. So doon napunta yung 1 million. A permanent bagsakan will be established in City Hall soon, and hopefully this program, which is very easy kasi fashionable lahat ng kabataan, takes root in our different barangays through the efforts of our SK officials, which we are working with now for this. And recently, we have been in talks with the private sector towards recycling electronic waste or e-waste. Kasi yung mga computers nyo, cellphones ninyo, saan napupunta. So meron na kaming binubuong programa para maayos yung mga yan, yung mga pwede pang gamitin, ay pwede nating ayusin, providing livelihoods for our women and our displaced workers, at ibigay sa mga mag-aaral na nangangailangan ng mga electronic tools. And just last week, we signed a memorandum of agreement with one of the water concessionaires na lahat ng treated wastewater nila ay gagamitin na ng Lungsod Quezon for firefighting and for cleaning our pavements and our streets. No? In support of our advocacy for healthy diets, I authored an executive order known as the Healthy Food Procurement Policy, in which we committed that no public funds would be spent on unhealthy food. Soon, a calorie labeling policy will be enforced in food establishments to encourage our citizens to make more informed and conscious decisions regarding the calorie content of their food choices. Ensuring that we have a sufficient local supply of healthy and fresh produce is essential to our adaptation strategy. The city's urban farming program, which started with backyard farming more than a decade ago, has now expanded to become a food security strategy that provides accessible and healthy sources of food for our people and livelihood opportunities for the unemployed. To date, we have established over 750 urban farms across our city, creating green jobs for more than 18,000 urban farmers. We have also incorporated an urban agriculture and program in our local Quezon City University, and now we have a Center for Urban Agriculture and Innovation there. At ang nakakatuwa, yung mga nag-enroll dyan, taga-probinsya. No? Our urban farming program has been recognized as a best practice for generating green jobs by C40 cities. And it should be noted, however, that the scope of green jobs encompasses more than just urban farming. All the initiatives I have highlighted contribute to this endeavor. So I'll end now. As I end, let me emphasize that our journey towards building a livable, green, sustainable, and climate-resilient Quezon City is a collective effort that should have begun years and years ago. I hope and pray the members of our audience here today, especially our students, will actively participate in the crusade to restore our ailing planet back to health. And I'd like to stress the importance of our youth, because we have a team, a delegation going to COP28 from the national government. And just last week, we gathered together 400 public school, elementary, and high school students from Quezon City to craft the children's agenda for climate action. And we are the first city to have such an agenda. And this was submitted to the delegation going to the COP conference in Dubai next December or next month. So people like myself and Philip will be 6 feet underground when the full impact of climate change is felt, assuming we all remain inactive and apathetic. But you, our young people, will be in the prime of your lives. So thus, I invite you to join us in this advocacy so that your generation and that of your children will not only survive, but thrive in a changing world. I am grateful to Manila Bulletin for the opportunity to share what we are doing in Quezon City. And I congratulate you for this very laudable endeavor. Maraming salamat po at mabuhay po tayo lahat.
Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte, ladies and gentlemen, who I'm asking to stay on stage because we would like to have photo opportunities with her. First, from the Manila Bulletin team, we have again Project Lead, Mr. Philip Cohenhing, Head of the Manila Bulletin Business Development, Jordan Tan, and Head of M-Brand, Irish Lorenzo. Please do join Mayor on stage for some photo opportunities. And in fact, we do not want to lose this opportunity for some of our speakers who are now present as well to have a photo opportunity with her after this one. So let's first have the Manila Bulletin team. Thank you very, very much. I'll call you. Please smile for the photo. We hope you're inspired by that very empowering keynote speech, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give Mayor Joy a round of applause. I now invite our morning speakers to also please come on stage. We have Mr. Raymond Rufino, Mr. Oliver Chan, Mr. Anthony Gob, Mr. Jaime Orquijo, and our friends from UP. Do we have our UP professors already here with us? May we invite Professor Magno, Professor Panao, to please join on stage for a group photo. These are our esteemed speakers for the morning of Day 2 of the Manila Bulletin Sustainability Forum. And what a way to start it off by that empowering, fiery speech, a wake-up call, a call to action indeed by Mayor Joy Belmonte. Thank you so much, Mayor Joy. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, speakers. And thank you to the Manila Bulletin team. Thank you very, very much. Phew! Alam niyo po, may sakit si Mayor Joy. She's not feeling well. Oh, diba? Tignan niyo yun, no? Ma'am, Mayor, thank you so much. Let's give her a round of applause again, please. No excuses. That is how it's done. Quezon City walks the talk. And I hope you all got a lot of notes out of that. But now, shall we begin with our speaker presentations? And to lead us with speaker number 1, we have an esteemed leader of one of the most recognized sustainable developers in the Philippines. That is NEO. Ladies and gentlemen, NEO has an outstanding real estate portfolio. In fact, they were the first to be certified with the International Finance Corporation's EDGE Zero Carbon certification. Let's hear more about how NEO continues to be at the forefront of sustainable real estate development from NEO's Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Raymond Rufino.
So what have we done? So I think Mayor Joy gave a fantastic keynote speech. But I think the question I want to begin my little talk this morning with is, what have we done? Over the past several years, we've seen major events all across the globe. You have glaciers shrinking, fires blazing, you have floods ravaging, you have typhoons. You know, here in the Philippines, we experience this every year. But something we've noticed is the severity of our storms are getting worse. The storms are getting stronger and they're getting more frequent, right? And really, if you think about it, it's not just the Philippines, all over the world. Wherever you are in the world, climate-related events and disasters have been happening. They affect rich countries, rich cities, poor countries, poor cities. Everyone seems to be affected. And so, for those who have been here since yesterday, we've been talking about, sustainability, climate change. You've all heard these words before. We used to say climate change, and they said, climate change doesn't have quite enough urgency to it. You have the third climate emergency. Kulang pa. Let's make it climate crisis. So the latest words, which I think are actually more accurate, really, is climate catastrophe. Because it used to be climate change, okay, we need to do something about it, but really what we're facing today is nothing short of a catastrophe. That's really how severe our situation is today. So, good morning. My name is Raymond Rufino. I'm the CEO or Chief Executive Officer of NEO. I like to say my day job is I work in real estate. We own, develop, and manage green office buildings. But really, my personal passion and advocacy is for green buildings and sustainability. And so I'd like to share a little bit of my story with all of you today and share a little bit of my journey as well. So in 2005, I went to take my master's in real estate in the US in Columbia University. So I get back in 2006, and I remember my dad telling me, Raymond, I spent so much, diba? Mahal to study in the US, diba? Expensive school, living expenses. I spent so much for your education. So what will you now bring back from your studies in the US to our business here in the Philippines, which was building office buildings? And I said, Papa, I look at the way that we were taught on development in the US, and one of the things I learned was, we would have these case studies of developing new projects. The professors and the teachers we had would always challenge us and said, you're going to be a developer, you're going to build a building good for 50 years, 75 years. If you are really, really good, maybe your building will last 100 years. Can you imagine the impact that building is going to have on the community, on the city that you're developing in for generations to come? What are you, Mr. Developer, because we were all pretending to be developers, it was a classroom setting. What are you going to do to make sure you mitigate the environmental impact of those projects? And that exercise, and I know many of you are students, and that's why I have so much respect for the professors and the teachers, because they really push you, no? So when I came back, I said, when I look at our real estate business, we're not doing any of this. Our efforts at sustainability back then were, let's do energy conservation, let's do water conservation with faucets that have just a manual, you press it and then it'll close by itself. So let's put timers on the lights. Very, very shallow. So I said, can we as a business really embrace sustainability and make it not just something we do, but something that we are? And very fortunately, my father and his partner at that time said, Raymond, we will fully support you. Let's go and embrace this sustainability direction that you want to do. So it started, baby steps for us. We really had this sort of regular way of doing business, and it took a lot of time, a lot of effort to kind of change the way that we designed, the way that we built, the way that we operated our buildings. One important step along this journey was in 2007. I also met a group of people, fellow advocates like me, who wanted to do more on an industry scale. And so in 2007, I helped co-found the Philippine Green Building Council. And back then we said, okay, we have this advocacy for green building. We're going to try and do what we can for the industry. And I said, the company is trying to do this sustainability journey. I'm starting this Philippine Green Building Council. I said, this is a really, really powerful opportunity for us to leverage our business and work with other people to really try to see if we can, push this across the industry. Back then, it was a very difficult conversation. I know many of you now, when you go around, you see all of these buildings with nice green certifications, and you hear about all of these green buildings. Back then, it was a very difficult conversation. It was not on the agenda. Developers and builders back then, they said, Raymond, why would we want to do this? My priorities: build my project on time, build my project on budget, build my project with good quality. I don't care about the environment, sustainability, di yan importante. The important thing is to deliver on these other things. That was the priority. Sustainability, green was not even on the list of things to consider. And yet, I knew that was something that had to change. Could not be. Because I saw in the US that this is the direction people were taking. We in the industry had to change. We had to really move the way that we used to do things and really transform our businesses and transform the industry. And fast forward to today, we have 7 office buildings in BGC. When I joined the company in 2006, we had 2 buildings and doing construction on 2 more. Now we have 7 office buildings in BGC. They are green buildings. And when I say, I've been talking about green buildings and sustainability for a long time. So people always ask, what does it really mean to be green? So I tried to break it down this way so that it becomes easier to understand. I think there are 3 key aspects to a green building. The first is health and wellness, because green buildings are not only good for the environment, they're good for the people that live, work, and play in these buildings. And so green buildings should be good for people. They should enhance your health, make you more well, right? Second, green buildings need to be net zero or work toward net zero. A lot of those climate-related events you saw are directly caused by greenhouse gas emissions. Well, guess what? 40% of those greenhouse gas emissions come from the real estate sector. Therefore, if I'm in real estate, I am part of the 40%. That is the problem. So buildings and construction really need to change. And so decarbonization or reducing the carbon impact of the real estate sector and construction sector is so important. If you can help reduce 40% of the problem, you are really making an impact, right? And lastly, which is so important these days, is resilience. A lot of people used to think, oh, green building, environmental impact lang. Today, resilience is such a key aspect of sustainability. You cannot talk about sustainability if your building is not able to withstand the shocks and hazards that are present today. What's the point of doing a green building if on the next earthquake or the next typhoon it collapses and it's gone, right? So let's talk a little bit more about net zero. I really believe decarbonization is probably the biggest challenge facing the real estate sector. The way to get there is to get all of our buildings to become net zero, right? And so the journey to net zero really begins with sourcing your power through renewable energy. So 10 years ago, 2013, something big happened in the landscape of power in the Philippines. Open access happened, and for the first time, companies and buildings could choose who would be their power provider. Dati, Meralco lang yan. Wala kang choice. All of a sudden, with open access, you can now choose where your power comes from. We were the first real estate group to say, we want to source all of our power through renewable energy. So we partnered with Aboitiz Power, and today all 7 of our buildings are powered with a purchase power contract for geothermal energy from the Macban Geothermal Power Plant. This is a picture. I've been to that power plant, amazing facility. And really, the key step in order for the net zero transition to happen is we need to have renewable energy supply, right? Because if you don't have renewable energy, you're never going to get there, right? And thankfully, the Philippines is now on a very good trajectory in building out much more renewable energy supply. And I think Jaime will talk a little bit more about that later as well in today's session. So renewable energy is critical in that direction, all right? So I'm not going to go through this in too much detail, but we are big believers in certifications and ratings. Why? Because if you look at the world today, every single group, not just in real estate, but every single company wants to market themselves as green. Diba? Everyone wants to say green. Who wants to be accused of not being green? Diba? Everyone wants to be green. In the real estate sector, everyone wants to say, my building is green, my building is sustainable, my project is good for the environment and good for the people. Diba? Sarap pakinggan, diba? It sounds really good. So from a marketing aspect, everyone wants to do it. Unfortunately, not everyone does what they say. Not everyone is able to do the actions or make the real commitments that the marketing, claims. Consistent with the marketing claims. So, if we want to avoid what we call greenwashing, which is again using sustainability as marketing but not really delivering on the actions or the results, we need to have certifications and ratings. So, what we've done over the past several years at NEO is we've focused, I talked about those 3 buckets, right? Health and wellness, net zero, resilience. We've been focused on getting certification for our buildings in each of those areas. And so, for health and well-being, we were able to get the WELL Health and Safety rating. We're going to be applying for full WELL certification soon. In terms of net zero, we got the Advancing Net Zero certification from the Philippine Green Building Council. Also, the IFC, International Finance Corporation EDGE zero carbon certification. And for resilience, we also got the Building Resilience Index or BRI certification for resilience, which I'll talk a little bit about later. So why is certification important? It means that someone else has looked at your project and has checked and said, this building really has fulfilled or delivered on what it means to be healthy, safe, net zero, resilience, whatever those parameters are. It's very important to have that third-party verification. So if you go around and look at a lot of buildings and you see these certifications, these are very, very important and very, very critical because this is how we build trust with the public that I'm not just saying I'm green, I'm not just claiming I'm resilient, I'm not just, promoting that I'm net zero. I've actually done a lot of work to make sure that I'm delivering on those different claims. Also, 10 years ago, we did something interesting, another story. So we really wanted to promote electric vehicles in the Philippines. So in 2013, we installed the first ever EV charging station in an office building. This is what it looks like. It was a partnership with Meralco. But guess what happened? 10 years ago. Can you imagine? If I asked you 10 years ago, ilan kaya yung nagpa-park, nagcha-charge sa EV charging station namin? Wala! Wala. So the story goes, we believe we wanted to promote electric vehicles. We wanted to do our share and say, if infrastructure, charging infrastructure is the challenge, let's take a step and try to start and put infrastructure and hopefully encourage it. But we were too early. We were too early. There were no electric vehicles being sold in the market. There was really no EV adoption to speak of 10 years ago, except if you had a golf cart or a electric bike, diba? But fast forward to today, the landscape has changed. How many people have heard of the latest models? Brands you've never heard before. BYD, Tesla, Hongqi, diba? These are all Chinese and all electric vehicle brands which are now coming to the Philippines. The number of brands available today is really quite exciting. So what you see today, which is the first ever EV charging station, we're going to be launching next week a brand new charging station in our 7 Neo building in partnership with Shell. It will be the first Shell destination charger in Asia that is powered fully by renewable energy, right? And why is this exciting for me is because while we're working in the real estate sector, the industry, can we also positively impact the transportation sector, a completely different sector, right? Because if we can encourage electric vehicles and charge those electric vehicles with geothermal or renewable energy, then not only can we decarbonize real estate, we can help decarbonize the transportation sector. So it's very, very exciting that in many of these opportunities, you think about your own project, you think about your own industry, but the opportunities for you to do much more and impact other industries are there. So I spoke a little bit about BRI very briefly, as I have to keep on time. For the first time in the history of the real estate sector, there was a rating system created to rate the resilience of buildings. It's called the Building Resilience Index. It's a project of the International Finance Corporation. And before, if you wanted to know if a building was resilient or not, you just had no way to know. If you asked the building owner, they would always say, of course my building is resilient, right? But you never really had any way to know. The Building Resilience Index of the IFC is the first platform. It's technology-based, where buildings can actually join the platform and they will rate your building based on various hazards, water hazards, wind hazards, fire hazards, geoseismic hazards, and give you a rating. So we're very proud that we were a pilot partner with IFC on this Building Resilience Index tool. And just recently, we were able to get all 7 of our buildings rated A+ for resilience, which means that in the event of any natural calamity or disaster, there's a very strong likelihood the building can withstand from the shocks and impacts of that hazard, right? I think this is very exciting because I really hope that we can do as a country is if we want to improve the resilience of our real estate sector, we start with getting ratings for all of our buildings. And so once we have ratings for our buildings, we can start to build ratings for our communities and hopefully ratings for our cities. So can you imagine one day if you can go home to your barangay and say, "Oy, where I live, all of the buildings are rated A+ for resilience." Doesn't that make you sleep better at night, knowing that your buildings are more resilient? So SDG 11, I know many of you students are studying the UN SDGs. I think this is something very, very important for the real estate sector. I think the key words here are inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. It is really what we're trying to create. The buildings that we are able to develop, produce, create, manage, operate, if we can do them in this way, we help create cities that are then like this, right? Any anime fans in the room? Who likes anime? Okay, so I don't know if you recognize this scene. It's from an anime called The Seven Deadly Sins. And I thought it would be pretty cool to show it here. I love this because when you think about the climate catastrophe, right? It's very, very easy to feel like you're facing an impossible foe, right? This climate catastrophe makes you feel so small, almost powerless. Parang no chance. You look at this visual and you can almost feel that there's no chance. Small little guy versus this massive, powerful, opponent, right? And that creates a lot of fear. I know many of you are young students or young professionals or people about to join the industry. And that fear about the future, the fear about this climate catastrophe can be very, very painful, can be very difficult, right? So what I'd like to show here is it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be fearful. It's okay to be worried. It's okay to be concerned. But tomorrow you have to take action. So the fear should inspire you to make change, to do good, to take action, not paralyze you into inaction, right? It's very, very sad for me when I talk to a lot of young people and they're hopeless. My own kids tell me sometimes, "Papa, do I have hope for the future? What kind of world will I live in when all of this climate catastrophe is happening?" Diba? It's very, very disappointing. It's very, very disheartening when you have young people without any hope. So I say it's okay. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be worried. It's okay to be fearful. But take action. Don't let it paralyze you. Don't let it affect you. Let it inspire you. Let it challenge you. Because if you don't take action, nothing is going to change, right? And change is what we need because there's no planet B. Mabuti sana if Mars was an option or the moon was an option. We can say, okay lang, lipat na lang tayo. There's no planet B. We only have one planet Earth, right? And inaction is not going to be able to save our planet. Action is what is required. And so together, I hope we can all collaborate and partner because, again, it's not really just individual action I'm talking about, but really partnership, network action, where we all come together to really see what we can do. And so my question as I end today's little talk is, what will you do, right? Many of the speakers this morning, we've heard them yesterday, we're all doing something. We're all in different industries, different companies. We're all trying to do what we can. But for you, the students, the young professionals, the audience here, what will you do? What's your action, right? And what I'd like you to think about is more than just what you will do individually, is I really want you to think, what can you do with organizations, with companies, with businesses, with industries, so that we can magnify our action. Because individual actions are important, but I've grown to learn that they're not enough. The reason why I'm active at the Philippine Green Building Council and active at the business is because I want to leverage and I want to amplify the impact we can make. And I want you all to think about actions and commitments you can do today so we can together amplify and keep our planet safe and healthy for future generations. Thank you. Thank you.
Raymond Rufino, ladies and gentlemen. Again, the CEO of NEO. Thank you for that. I felt that last part, especially when we're talking about our kids. You know, even my kids are like saying, Mama, I don't have kids. I don't have children. Exactly, right? Because what's the future? What's the planet? It's really a wake-up call. But before we let Raymond go, I do have a question. Like I said, a quick question before we have our panel discussion at the end. You brought the example, thank you, of the now and then scenarios. How far you've gone and how far we have yet to go. And I like your personal story on how your own papa was saying, what do you bring back from your studies? And thank you for sharing what it was. But I'm laying down what it'll be like this morning. The real estate industry is well represented this morning alone. And so I ask you, Raymond, what about in the local setting?
Yeah.
Have you been seeing examples from other, I mean, at the end of the day, competition, call it that,
Yes.
but you are all part of the real estate industry. And guess what? Whatever sustainable effort there is a win-win situation, right? So any examples that inspire you from the local scene?
Absolutely. I think it's good to remember that if you think about green buildings, let me ask you, what is the greenest building you can think of? What comes to mind? Greenest building in the Philippines, what comes to mind?
Anong drawing? What's that? Why are
Bahay
you
Kubo.
Bahay
Diba?
Kubo. There,
Bahay
is that
Kubo.
it?
Okay,
Because they were all just doing it.
So we have a history as a people of actually being green and sustainable. Nandun na yan. The Bahay Kubo is one of the greenest, most sustainable structures you can find. The Bahay Kubo house, diba? So we have that in our culture, in our history. The challenge is that over time, we kind of forgot a lot of those things, diba? We kind of forgot a lot about some of these basic things. And yet, so yes, there are a lot of buildings that have been built and we could use a lot of improvement. But going to Isa's point, I'm very, very excited with what's happening in our sector now. You have a lot of companies, not just us, but companies like Arthaland. If you look at the kind of buildings we've been designing and building for the past several years, some of these buildings are not just good performers for the Philippines. They are good performers on a global scale, right? Let's just talk about net zero. You have net zero buildings in the Philippines, while certain cities in Europe and the US don't even have one. Tayo meron na. So we have to be proud of the progress we're making. There's a lot of exciting examples of really green and sustainable projects here in the Philippines. Government is also doing its share. I don't know if any of you have been to the LLDA building, which is one of the first BERDE certified government buildings. Beautiful green building. A lot of green strategies there. So there are a lot of local examples. And really the message is, kaya natin to locally. Doing green sustainable buildings is not just for countries like the US, not just for European countries. It's also for us here in the Philippines. We can do it. We can make our new buildings greener. We can make our existing and older buildings greener as well. That's really important. The existing older buildings need a lot of work, and I think we can do a lot in that area.
Thank you. We're going to see him again for the panel discussion. Raymond Rufino, ladies and gentlemen, from NEO. Now, before I introduce the next speaker, there's a little change in direction when it comes to the winners of our special prizes. Not only should you register at the registration area outside, but please also fill out the online feedback form. The winners will be announced after this afternoon's panel discussion by Mika Pineda and Sam Thurman. And again, you have to be physically present, everybody, so that you can claim your prizes and present a valid ID. 2 things to do: fill out the online form, register at the registration area. Now, since our friend from NEO actually mentioned Arthaland already, our next speaker comes from Arthaland Corporation. Arthaland is recognized by both local and global organizations for their design, quality, and focus on sustainability and innovation. So I hope you're ready to listen up to the hows and whys of their sustainability initiatives. We have with us Arthaland's Senior Vice President and Chief Sustainability Officer. A round of applause for Oliver L. Chan. Hi, Oliver. Good morning.
Okay, so if I sound like I'm lecturing you, my first job was teaching. I used to teach in a school near Magallanes. You probably know what it is. But the thing about sustainability is during forums, we always talk about what we do, certifications and what we have, right? Right now, I want to focus on beyond our own developments, what we do beyond Arthaland. And I think that's very important for us to talk about because when we talk about sustainability, we talk about accessibility to all, right? When we talk about sustainability, it is about how not only the rich people can afford sustainability, but everyone in this country to be able to afford and actually deserves sustainability. So that will be the main focus of my discussion today. Okay, so I'll start off a bit about Arthaland, but we're going to go through the slides. So Arthaland, we pride ourselves in terms of sustainability, just like the NEO Group. And when I started with the company in 2008 of June, it was already a mandate in terms of all our projects will have to be sustainable. So our first turned over project, which is a residential project in BGC called Aria Residences, 2009, was already LEED Gold certified. So 2009, there was no pandemic, no one was talking about sustainability. And we all know that it was the pandemic that pushed sustainability to the limelight, right? And 2009, we already have a LEED certified building.
Can we tell them what LEED certified
Okay,
is? Because we
LEED
know net
is
zero.
leadership in energy and efficiency. So basically, it's from the US Green Building Council. And thanks to Raymond, we have a Philippine Green Building Council. US Green Building Council created a format of standards, like a checklist that you have to follow in order for your building to become sustainable. That's one. And then they have third-party testing to make sure that you follow the design that you submit. So they actually have pre-certification wherein it checks your design, and then the actual certification when your building finishes, because they want to make sure that you fulfill the promised design that you have in the building. All right, so you have LEED, 2009, 2010, and then eventually, while it's still loading, until 2028. No, but 2019, our building in BGC, Arthaland Century Pacific Tower, become the first in the world to be recognized by the IFC as net zero carbon. So I think we all talk about if it's possible, and that shows even a country like the Philippines can make it possible and be first in the world. Okay. So, talking about different certifications, 100% of projects of Arthaland, we have committed to get all certifications from LEED, Verde, EDGE, and WELL. 100% of our projects. That's our commitment.
Let's describe the rest. We know
Yeah,
LEED.
so Verde,
we know-
I think Raymond described earlier wherein he founded it before. And then we have EDGE by the International Finance Corporation.
IFC, yep.
Yes, so it's an excellence in design, right? So basically, EDGE focuses on energy savings. What benefits the buyers of real estate, right? So when you buy a real estate project, normally what happens? Oh, there it is.
Okay.
So when you buy a real estate project, normally you ask about how much it is, can I look at the model units? You don't actually ask the specifications of the project. EDGE does that. They make sure that the benefits of sustainability like energy and water savings goes to the buyer and not actually the developer. Okay, so my topic, less 5 minutes, is greening beyond our own. So let's go forward since I've talked about Arthaland for a bit already. Please, next slide. Okay, go back please. So it was mentioned earlier, 39% of all carbon emissions are from real estate. Now, of that 39%, it's important for us to actually identify what is in that 39%. So if you can move to the 2 slides forward. Of that 39%, 51% actually comes from residential projects where we live in. And 22% from commercial, 17% institutional. So a big piece of the pie is actually from residential projects. So we have to do something when it comes to the place that we live in and making it sustainable. Right? We don't, of course, we spend 8 to 9 hours of our time in school or in offices, but we spend a lot of time at home, especially with our families. So 51%. that is something that we have to work on. Remember, if you're building an office project and making it sustainable, interior-wise, it's bare cement. Sometimes you put in the air conditioning. In residential projects, you have what type of flooring do you use, right? Is it FSC certified? Is it, different non-toxic VOC paints? It's harder to create residential projects that are sustainable. And yet, this is where we live in. Next slide, please. So, we decided that, when we started Arthaland, it was really for the more affluent market. But we decided that sustainability is for everyone. So we decided to show everyone that sustainability can actually be done in more affordable projects. This project is called Una Apartments. We put this in Laguna, right across one of your rival schools. But the key thing here in Una Apartments, the reason why we call it Una, Una meaning in Tagalog, first, di ba? Sa atin, di ba? Una. First development that is sustainable, that is affordable, and your first investment that will really last a lifetime because it is sustainable. So all the sustainable certifications that I mentioned earlier, we will have in this project, but in studio units and in one-bedroom units in a more affordable price. You still have the large windows for the sunlight to come in. You have what we call the engineers, ERVs, energy recovery ventilators. It actually preconditions the air before it enters your unit. So you have fresh air all the time. It dehumidifies the air before it goes to your unit. So imagine having a unit like this and not spending $1 million for it. No? So that's our goal, bringing sustainability to everyone. Next slide. So with this 8-hectare development, so these are the Una Apartments, we worked with the national government because there has to be an advantage. And how can it be owned by the mass market of the Philippines? Who among here are aware of the interest rates now in the Philippines? If you get from the bank, if malakas ka, 7%, and then you have interest rates going up to 8%, Balay Verde is a program with the National Home Mortgage Finance Corporation. And if your project is certified sustainable, you get a loan up to 30 years with 4.5% fixed interest the entire 30 years. So part of building a development is making also it affordable and available to the broader market in terms of sustainability. So actually they even give a loan up to age 71 or 72, which banks don't give, right? And in other banks, your 7% interest changes after 3 years, and then you have no control. Here, it's 4.5% interest fixed for 30 years, right? So it's a combination of building it and making sure that the public can actually afford it. That's our goal. Next slide. So this was the signing with NHFMC, but again, bringing it to the broader market. We signed an agreement with the national government to build the first sustainable certified socialized housing in the country. Socialized meaning we're not going to sell it. It's actually for the public. It's actually free. How do we do that? Each real estate developer actually is required to pay a certain amount. Normally, it's 5% of your development cost to Department of Housing. You give it in an escrow, and they take care of everything else. What we suggested, why don't we use that 5% and help you build a sustainable housing community? We take care of manpower, no additional cost. We take care of architects, we take care of the engineers. And they agreed to it. So we're now working with the Cebu local government as well, choosing the right property for us to build the first sustainable socialized housing in the country. Next slide. Now, advocacy is more than just talking about it. It's actually doing something about it in terms of sustainability. So, next slide. This is a public school in Cebu City. A few years ago, they had Odette. So I have 10 minutes remaining. So they had Odette. Cebu didn't experience all these floods before. And then they had that big typhoon. It was Christmas season going towards New Year. It destroyed all their public schools. Roofing was left as is during school season. And when I was talking to the local government, they were talking about dignity. And then we went around the public schools. And how can this be dignity, right? We're talking about kids and students being our future, and they have schools like this, not fixed after a year and a half of the typhoon. Next slide. This is actual. Do you know that they hold school there, and if it rains, they all run? This is actually the condition when we visited it a year and a half after the typhoon. They also have shifting. Morning is 9 to 11 is grade 3. 12 to 3 is grade 2. So the others won't have classrooms, no? So when we saw this, we decided to find a way to not only educate students, but bring them that dignity that the local government was talking about and making it sustainable. Next slide. This is how it looks like today. Last month, we inaugurated the first sustainable certified public school in the country. It was certified by the International Finance Corporation, so we put in LED lights, new ceiling. Of course, we had some help. Low-flow plumbing fixtures, we got help from American Standard, from our contractors. Daytime help with the electric fans. The paintings, we actually used I would say recycled or extra paints that we had in our projects. All developers will have excess materials. We used it to fix the public school, and this is how it looks like today. Next slide. Nagkulang lang kami sa paint, pero tatapusin namin yan. But basically, this is how it looks today from where it was before. Now they can go to school with dignity. And our next project, we're working with our structural consultants because we want to make it net zero. We want to put solar panels to make this public school really worth making a story about. Thank you. Next slide. Now, these are other schools. So this November 30, so this year we fixed one school. Next year we're targeting hopefully more. And this November 30, we're flying again to Cebu to visit more public schools and to see how we can help and fix them up. Because again, all of you are the future. And we take pride in that. And we hope other local governments, naka-stream to, di ba? I hope other local governments would follow suit. Because when we started this program, we actually wrote to different local governments. And we're happy that Cebu answered our letter and wanted to work with us. Why does it have to be a place far away who will answer what we want to do? Right? We're all here in Metro Manila. Next slide. Next is you, all of you, students. We actually also wrote to different schools because we want to help teach sustainability in schools. Only NU responded. I hope others will. But, we started the professional green building training. So we selected architectural students, and they actually practiced and tested our projects for them to learn about sustainability. And we gave out scholarships. So we understand that today sustainability is very important internationally. And for them to get that experience gives them a huge advantage when they graduate. So these were 4th year and 5th year students. Next slide. So actually, Mika over here, who just graduated, now works for a sustainable consultancy firm after the program. So it opens up a lot of opportunities for all of you. So if any of you would like to know more about sustainability, please approach us. We will happily help you out, assist you, or even teach you. But our main goal when we started this program was sustainability to become a part of the curriculum, not just some extra exercise that you want to do. So hopefully, schools would answer our call and allow us to help as well. I mean, we're not experts, but at least we can contribute in a certain manner. Next slide. Small things, baby steps. Sustainability is about baby steps. Yes, okay. Baby steps meaning you don't have to jump from not being sustainable to net zero or 100% sustainable. You start small because if you jump 100% trying to go net zero in one go, then you will feel the effects. Everyone was talking about the cost will be more expensive, but you don't have to. It's a step. You do it step by step, whatever you can, until you reach that final goal. So as long as you have that final goal set of where you want to go, each step will actually help. So this is within our company, and we're rolling out to the entire building as well, in our office building. No reusable cups. No disposable or single-use cups, allowed in our office. And this has been fully implemented. No? Humingi lang sa amin ng mga bamboo cups, no? But that's fine. And then we're rolling this out to the entire building. No? So small things, whether it's us within the company or trying to spread it towards everyone in the country, that's our advocacy. Making sustainability accessible to everyone. Next slide. This one is called Healthy Halls. So we helped out farmers because their stocks normally, they don't sell all. There are a lot of wastages. Okay, so next slide. What we do is together with our staff, security personnel, housekeeping, 2022, we started with 3.3 metric tons of vegetables that weren't sold. We subsidized it, and it's fun because they get a box, and they get to fill it with fruits and vegetables. As long as it fits in the box, you get to bring it home, right? So it's like an eat-all-you-can buffet of fruits and vegetables, right? So 2022, we had 260 Filipino families and 260 beneficiary families that we helped. 2023, from 3.3 metric tons, we were able to increase it to 17.1 metric tons, helping 640 Filipino farmers that they weren't able to dispose of their goods, and 1,160 beneficiary families. So we plan to grow this every time and help more of our unfortunate farmers. You know, in other countries like Canada, farmers are the most richest people in the country, right? And Japan, yes, which is weird. And us here, they're the most kawawa, if you want to call it, diba? So we have to find small but simple ways on how to help them grow. And this is one way, taking out their spoilage and making sure that they earn from it. And at the same time, helping families of our staff as well. Next slide. Next is Net Zero Carbon Alliance. So we are a founding member, and from the start until today, we now have 20 members. Sayang wala na si Mayor, but Unilever is part of it. You know? So they have steps going towards 2030, making it net zero. Right? So Converge is there, Unilever, and other big companies are already part of the Net Zero Carbon Alliance. So we help each other in terms of how we monitor and fast-track our commitment to net zero. Next slide. The Climate Group UK. We're the first and only Filipino member of the Climate Group. And we are helping them push here in the Philippines. And we were able to help them get Datem. If you know Datem, Datem is one of the largest construction firms in the country. Next slide. They decided to join the Climate Group after we presented to them. Why are we talking about bringing our suppliers in? People talk about net zero carbon, and net zero carbon, that's only operational. We are operating buildings. What about the materials that we use to build the buildings? What about, they call it scope 3, the third-party suppliers or the supply chain, right? How are we going to do this? We have to bring them in, we have to educate them, and we have to make sure that they are open to sustainability. So we brought our own contractors and brought them to the Climate Group, and they are now members of the Climate Group. They are now creating their path towards carbon neutrality. We have to get there. Let's not talk about operational. We know we can do it already. Let's talk about third-party suppliers. Let's talk about the supply chain. And that's our new advocacy as well that we're adding to it. So again, together, let's make sustainability accessible to all and everyone, since everyone deserves sustainability. Thank you very much, everyone.
Oliver Chan, ladies and gentlemen, from Arthaland. Ollie, quick question before we let you off stage. Thank you again for very, very inspiring. And I love how aligned you are with what we're doing here at the Manila Bulletin Sustainability Forum. It's really education, reaching out to students, and really moving forward with them. So thank you for sharing with us this sustainable certified socialized housing, which again drives the point that sustainability practices for residential places is actually affordable for everybody. But then I want to jump more on your professional green building training program. How you are open to making it part of a curriculum to education in educational institutions, and then you have a graduate already in a consulting firm. So it's not just teaching. Do you see that it can be a cycle that they can also contribute with how they're learning?
Yes, actually. You know, the professional green building training program, you know, it's a program that started off with how do we make it an actual curriculum in schools, right? And as I mentioned, there is no expert in sustainability. Every day, a new terminology comes up. I was making kwento to others earlier. There was even a student from New York who sent us an email checking if we're really following through with our sustainability advocacy.
Oh, wow.
You know? And it's the same thing with us here in the Philippines. Our goal is for all of you to have that advantage internationally, not just locally. So I see it growing. As mentioned, we started with 5 students. Next year, we're trying to get 10 or more students. And then hopefully, if the schools agree, it becomes a curriculum. But we will learn a lot from you as well, because you guys do a lot of reading. I do a lot of YouTube. You guys do a lot of reading, right? So things you learn will actually mindset of the younger people is more advanced. When I say more advanced, you're open to more learnings. Diba, kami matitigas na ulo namin eh. Diba? But kayo, you learn more, you absorb more. And hence, you have more creative ideas for us to be able to do things properly. And in that way, yes, we feel that it's actually beneficial to both us as a developer and you guys in terms of learning sustainability.
And that's why it's a win-win situation. Yeah. Thank you very
Thank you very much,
Oliver Chan, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see him later after for the panel discussion. Up next, we're going to take a quick break from real estate and go technology. We have with us now a speaker from Acer Philippines Incorporated. Acer has announced its key strategies that includes 9 directions under 3 major pillars. They are committed to reducing their carbon footprint and emissions with 3 dimensions of business operation. That's number 1. There's product and service, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with already. And then let's not forget the value chain. So everybody, let's listen up to their net zero strategies. We have with us the Senior Manager for Consumer and Gaming Products. Oh, wait. He will talk sustainability, huh? Not gaming. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Anthony Gobb. Hi, sir. Gaming daw, oh, na-excite.
Mukhang maraming gamers dito But yeah, good morning everyone. So it's my pleasure and Acer Philippines to be part of this Manila Bulletin 2023 Sustainability Forum. So Acer is green, diba? So it's very synonymous to sustainability effort. But before I go on with my presentation, so next slide please. Okay, so there's a video, by the way. May audio ba? Just to amplify our efforts.
Remains firm. The choice to see the better future. And Acer is committed to its mission for the world with the clarion call, Ace the Change.
Like the seed, even our smallest actions can grow into monumental shifts. We all hold the power to begin again, to choose the path of restoration, and to plant the seeds of change.
When we plant a tree, we are not just anchoring roots into the earth. We are weaving a new chapter in the narrative of our planet, investing in the air we breathe, the land we cherish, and the communities we nurture.
Beyond the roots and leaves, the bonds we form and the partnerships we forge define the legacy of our mission. United in purpose, our camaraderie is our strength, nourishing the seeds of wisdom and knowledge, igniting the flames for a sustainable tomorrow.
To ace the change is to lead it. It's not just about responding, but about proactively shaping our future. It's about envisioning a greener, healthier, and more harmonious planet, and taking the reins to make it so. Every tree we plant is a commitment, a pact with the future.
As we celebrate our 20th anniversary, we stand at the pinnacle and pledge to future generations that we have stood at the crossroads of time and chosen the path of stewardship.
We are Acer, and this is our responsibility. This is our call to ace the change.
Okay, so that is part of our, thank you. So that's part of our Make Your Green Mark campaign as we celebrate our 20th anniversary this year. So next slide. Okay, so where is Acer right now in terms of the global footprint? So Acer actually is a Taiwanese brand. Our headquarters is based in Taipei, Taiwan. We're 47 years in terms of the global presence. Well, this year is extra special because we are celebrating our 20th anniversary. Our long-term mission actually is breaking the barriers between people and technology. But the big question is what's next after bringing together all our product portfolio, meaning from laptop, desktop, display products, and projectors. Next slide. Okay, so just a review in a nutshell, where is Acer right now in terms of our market share? According to IDC, meaning based on shipment, Acer is #1 PC brand here in the Philippines for 14 consecutive years from 2009 to 2022, and 27% total PC market share, meaning combined notebook and desktop from consumer and commercial. Next slide. For notebook, according to GfK, meaning this is more on sell out to the customer like you, consumer, or to our corporate clients, we're also #1 with 32% total notebook market share last year. And for the gaming business, we're 40% market share, which make us #1 gaming PC brand here in the Philippines. Next slide. Now, for desktop, we're also #1, and we're happy to share that in terms of the branded computers, meaning hindi kasama ang white box or clone computer, we're also #1 with 38% market share. And for all-in-one computer, we're also #1 with 32% market share. Next slide. For display products, meaning these are the monitors, whether consumer monitors or gaming monitor, we're also #1 in 2022 with 22% market share. Next slide. And lastly, not only for the consumer, but we're also nurturing business opportunities for the commercial space with 60% PC market share for government. And we're very #1 in education market with 45% market share last 2022. Next slide. Now, the big question is, what's next with Acer? So, for Acer, we create tangible and intangible social values for a better future. Next slide. And this is where our sustainability efforts comes in. So this is our framework for our sustainability efforts. Integrated sustainable governance, pioneering green innovation, and comprehensive sustainable impact. Next slide. Okay, last 2021, we began bringing together our employees and supply chain partners to expand the reach of sustainability efforts by launching the Earthion initiative. So what is this Earthion initiative? So our goal is to build everyone together, from our employees to our suppliers, meaning the ODM, the one who supplies the memory, the hard drive, our industry partners like Microsoft, NVIDIA, Intel, AMD, to solve our environmental challenges with innovative and integrated solution. And the good thing, last year, 2022, 60% of our critical suppliers have committed to renewable electricity to reduce the carbon footprint. Next slide. So what is our responsible supply chain? So responsible supply chain meaning pare-parehas lang naman ng computers eh, 'di ba? If you with our friendly competitors, we have the same components from memory, from hard drive, from operating system. But with Acer, beyond the business, we also focus our social and environmental value by building a foundation of respect for human rights and working diligently towards a sustainable supply chain. Next slide. So this is the framework that we created for our supplier social environmental management process bago mabuo ang isang simpleng laptop that you can see in the retail stores. So we have our implementation and agreement, risk assessment, auditing and validation, and ongoing improvement and capability building. Next slide. So since we crafted our sustainability efforts and the framework or the blueprint, next slide please. Okay, this is our 3 pillars in terms of our accomplishment for our sustainability goals. So we divided into 3. We have our circular economy, climate change, and social impact. For circular economy, we want to achieve the sustainable design, recycled materials, and reduce plastic packaging. So later on, I'll show you our notebook that is environmentally friendly or made of recycled materials. So with that goal, last 2022, what we accomplished is 17% of the material that we created for our notebook is more on the PCR plastic content, which our goal is to have 20 to 30% of PCR plastic content in computers and display. For climate change, which is more on renewable energy, energy efficiency, and carbon reduction, our goals for 2025 is to achieve 60% renewable electricity usage. And by last year, we achieved already 44%. Also, one of our goals is to achieve 45% reduction in average computer energy consumption, in which last year for notebook computer, we already achieved 39%, and for desktop computer, we achieved 35%. And lastly, for the social impact, what we want is to have environmental friendliness, IT education, which we are building through our Acer Academy, and at the same time, employee engagement, which last year, we achieved already 71% of employees engaged into Project Humanity, which is evident from the video that I've shown earlier, and 78% for global employees that are already achieved or engaging for the sustainability efforts. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is our Acer Net Zero strategy. So I will introduce what is this Acer Vero is all about. Next slide, please. Okay, so what is this Vero notebook? Have you heard the Vero notebook if you visited our Acer concept stores in Cyberzone, in SM Mall? So nakita ninyo, meron diyang banner notebook sa gitna ng aming concept store. We call it our Acer Vero. So what is this Vero is all about? Vero is our green notebook, so which is more on for sustainable material, green identity, green packaging, energy saving, repairability, upgradability, and minimum add-on treatment. Next slide, please. Okay, so this Vero is made of recycled materials. So may nagtanong before, is it just to show that parang meron lang talagang ma-position kayo na, okay, it's an environmental friendly notebook? No, it's not more on like parang, sige, meron kaming environmental friendly notebook, but the material is like the usual metal or plastic. But for Acer, this is an innovation and it's our effort to continuously break the barriers between people and technology. We are using the PCR plastic. So what is this PCR plastic is all about? So later on, I'll show you ano ang Acer Vero recycled material. Next slide. Okay, so PCR stands for post-consumer recycled. So post-consumer recycled, so it's more on yung mga waste or yung mga garbages na meron tayo, then we are converting it to material for sustainability. So more devices are made for plastic, produced, thrown away, and plastic pollution. So ito yung mismong process kung paano nako-convert ang isang waste or garbages to turn into a material for us to use in our Acer Vero laptop. So from waste collection, transport to MRF, up to bundling, shredding, washing, then magiging na siyang part of the Vero. So yung small particles, binuo siya para gamitin namin as the chassis for our Acer Vero notebook. Okay, next slide. Okay, so for a notebook, for our Acer Vero, ibig sabihin, ang isang chassis or yung mismong body ng notebook is about 566 grams. So for Acer Vero, 30% is PCR recycled or post-consumer recycled, meaning 170 grams of the notebook is made of recycled materials. So to put it into perspective, this 170 grams is equivalent to 11 CD disc or yung ating mga disc before, or pwedeng 0.5 ng isang 5-liter water container na nilagay natin sa basurahan, or isa 1.1 ng 450 ml water bottle. So in short, those waste or plastic materials, we are converting it in such a way that we are using that specific PCR to use it in our chassis for our Acer Vero notebook. Okay? Next slide. Okay, not only that, for Acer, pare-parehas lang namang yung notebook. Even our friendly competitors can deliver the same technical specifications. Pare-parehas lang yan ng processor, Intel Core i5, i7, or AMD Ryzen 5, or even same memory or hard drive. But for Acer, we put value-added solution. So what is this value-added solution? So we integrate our VeroSense. VeroSense is a solution that or application that provides user with 4 performance mode, meaning you can put your laptop in different modes, more on for energy optimization, for the conservation of our environment. So we have our performance mode up to the Eco Plus mode, which is extreme battery saving with critical function disabled, but it's limiting the carbon footprint. That's why it's very sustainable notebook. Okay, next slide. Okay, not only that, in terms of the design perspective, which is PCR material, we are also using a recycled carbon paper for our packaging. So yung packaging namin, hindi mo lang siya basta pwedeng isang box na pwede mo nang itapon. You can also convert it into a laptop stand para you can use it in your table para no need for you to put it into waste. So at the same time, you have a laptop stand already. Okay? So next slide. Okay, so the exciting part for Vero, we will not only incorporate to our consumer notebook. Soon, we will also incorporate it to different Acer products like our desktop, our projectors, even our bags, even our monitors, and different information technology products. So it will be an exciting actually for Acer for the next 3 years because we will be facing more on Vero products in our product portfolio, whether for Acer or for gaming platforms. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this will be our roadmap. The Acer Earthion. So by 2035, it's more on renewable electricity and the net zero by 2050. Next slide, please. So I'll just skip this one. This is more on the other efforts of other Acer subsidiaries worldwide. So they're also doing their own sustainability efforts, different activities and different campaigns. Next slide, please. So in 2022, we're very happy that Acer scored in the top 100 percentile across 8 components. So mas mataas kami dun sa industry standard that we set based on the platform and the implementation that we created for our environmental policy. Next slide, please. So also for Acer, we maintained last 2022, we garnered the best rating or the AAA in category of technology, hardware, storage, and peripherals industry. It's more on the awards from different accolades based on the sustainability efforts that we are incorporating. Next slide. Also, we're listed among Forbes' World's Best Employers for the 3rd straight year. Next slide, please. And we also awarded by EcoVadis Platinum Medal. So this one, representing the top 1% of the rated companies for the 2nd year, screened among 200,000 companies from 200 sectors in 175 countries. So the rating is based on the score in 4 sustainability themes: environment, labor and human rights, ethics, and sustainable procurement. Next slide, please. Medyo hinahurry na ako. Okay, so for Acer, different subsidiaries from EMEA region, from Pan America and Pan Asia Pacific, they're doing also different sustainability efforts. Next slide. Okay, we're very happy to share for this year, Acer Philippines won the Red Dot or the prestigious Red Dot winner for our Acer Day concert last 2022. So I don't know kung merong nakapunta dun sa Acer concert or the Acer 2022 concert last year and this year. But later on, I'll show what this Red Dot or this Acer Day is all about. Next slide. Okay, so what is this Acer Day 2022? Make Your Green Mark campaign. This is to amplify our efforts for sustainability. So this concert is also bringing back or way of giving back to our customers for their continuous patronage for making us #1 PC vendor here in the Philippines. So these are the numbers. 40 plus Asia Pacific ambassadors, 5,401 trees committed, 15,000 concert attendees, 20 plus metric tons of plastic waste, and 714 million online reach. So to put it into perspective, next slide. Okay, so for Acer and Predator, Predator is our gaming brand. So yung mga gamers dyan. So Predator is our gaming notebook brand. So we incorporated our brand ambassadors to ignite our global sustainability drive with impactful manifesto videos. So we gathered our brand ambassadors, Sarah Geronimo, Catherine Bernardo, Daniel Padilla. So they create a call to action video about our sustainability efforts. And this is a passionate plea for the environmental sustainability which urges Filipinos to make a positive impact to our planet. So part of the engagement activities to our Make Your Green Mark campaign is the amplification to our social media platforms. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is our Acer Day concert. So may naka-attend ba? May fan ba dito ng SB19? Sorry, hindi ako Gen Z. So actually, sobrang ano din ako eh. Parang sino si SB19? But when I saw them perform, they're really, really good P-pop band. So part of our 2022 concert across genre, from Parokya ni Edgar, Sakta Budlo, Mayonnaise, and different artists, we gathered them together for the Make Your Green Mark concert. Pero hindi lang siya simpleng concert. Ano bang meron sa concert na to? For tickets, once you purchase a tickets, part of the amount will go to our Green Earth Heritage. So we support a sustainable organization na meron kaming ibibigay sa kanilang fund to create more sustainability efforts. So tickets earned through the green initiatives like monetary donations to the Green Earth Heritage Foundation and plastic contributions to the Plastic Flamingo made this event a milestone in environmental commitment. Another thing, kung wala kayong masyadong budget nung time na yon, once you donated a specific amount of plastic waste material, it will be converted and magkakaroon ka din ng free ticket as long as nag-donate ka nung time na yon. So it's another portion. That's why we had almost 15,000 attendees in Mall of Asia Arena. Next slide, please. Okay, Acer raises 1.3 million, commits 5,401 trees for forest rehab, uniting music and sustainability for a greener tomorrow. So for every notebook that you purchased during the promo duration of our Make Your Green Mark campaign last year and this year, part of that, meron kayong seedling na idodonate dun sa tree planting activity namin. So for every purchase of one laptop, one seedling ng tree na i-donate namin dun sa isang watershed in Bulacan. Next slide. And also, Acer and the Plastic Flamingo transformed 20 tons of plastic waste into eco-lumber marble. So yung na-mention ko earlier, we captured and we gathered almost 20 tons of waste. At yung waste na yon, dinonate namin siya sa PLAF. So PLAF is a third-party organization. And at the same time, nagkaroon kayo ng free ticket dun sa Acer concert. Next slide. So that is our Make Your Green Mark campaign. So I think this is the last slide, and another video is a collective effort to show our initiative, not just breaking the barriers between people and technology, but creating sustainability efforts. Can you please play the video?
Are you
right, so that video actually captured our efforts for sustainability, and cliché as it may sound, for Acer, the best is yet to come. So thank you and good morning.
Mr. Totti or Anthony Gob, who I'm going to ask one question.
Punta tayo dito kasi
I
hindi
know.
nga pala Acer yung laptop na nakita.
It's not his device, ha? It's not his device.
It's not my device.
Oh,
Baka
just to be clear,
ano.
okay? It's not his device because baka mamaya Sir Oli Chan siya na mag-lecture habang naglo-load.
Baka ang mga Taiwanese pumunta dito.
Okay. Okay, here's my question. Again, seeing the new line, the Vero line, of course, here's my natural question after seeing all that. Is it more affordable or expensive to go sustainable? Because again, replacing plastic, recyclable, price points.
Okay, the good thing with Acer kasi, we have entry level, we have mid-range, and we have high-end to cater for different technical specifications of the consumer market. For Vero, we have actually 40,000 plus na SRP. So that's our SRP. So you can see it actually on our major retail stores. We have one SKU at 42,999. So for me, it's very affordable with the i5, 8 gig, and 512 SSD specifications. So, but we also have high-end kasi it really depends on the specs.
Because we're not talking to just students, we are talking to
Yes.
corporations and companies who might want their technology capabilities as well sustainable in the future.
So we can customize actually, but for Vero, we created i5 and i7. So it really varies on the specifications, but I can safely answer na about 40,000 to 50,000 SRP, standard retail price.
Okay, and moving forward, will the Vero line lead the way? For now, you're offering it as an option. Will it now take center stage? Do you see that happening with your brand?
It will be
For
just
products?
part of the product portfolio, meaning we still have the Predator gaming, we have the Nitro gaming, we have the Aspire models. Vero will be just portion. It will be portion, but it will continue.
The sustainability
Yes,
practices,
every
meaning
year.
replacing.
Yes, so there is a
parts.
roadmap because we are also dependent to our industry partners like Intel, AMD, Microsoft. So, for example, right now we're on the 13th generation Intel processor. So right now the Vero lineup is more on Intel 13th generation. But for next year, it will be 14th generation. So we will face in another model na naka 14th gen na siya.
Okay, well,
So, andun pa siya. Kumbaga, may roadmap siya every year, but more on transition period lang. Iba lang siya ng iba ng model number, but the essence of the Vero will always be there.
there you go. So even when it comes to technology, especially devices, you know how Filipino habits are. Every year you change and all that, which is of course waste.
Yeah.
So now you got to think about how those come in the picture as well. Thank you very much. A round of applause
Thank
for
you, thank
Toti
you,
Gob
thank you. Thank you,
from
Isa.
Acer. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Last but not least for our speakers this morning, and we're doing very, very good with time. They have of course, they have real estate in their portfolio, but now we go back to a conglomerate of companies, ladies and gentlemen, here to present their consistent efforts and accomplishments towards the net zero goal by 2050. We have the Chief Sustainability and Risk Officer of Ayala Corporation. A round of applause for Mr. Jaime Z. Urquijo. Hi, Jaime.
Thank you.
Good
Hello.
morning.
Good morning. No, I'll stay at the podium.
Yeah, most of the men were walking around, so.
Good morning, good morning. Hello, everyone. Let me just get this sort of sorted. Really, really fantastic to be here, so thank you so much for the opportunity. Yeah, truly humbled to be in such a fantastic and sort of prestigious university, and so thank you for the opportunity today. My name is Jaime Urquijo. I'm the Chief Sustainability and Risk Officer. Oh, okay, thank you so much. Of Ayala Corporation. And I've been with the group for just over 10 years now, so joined in 2013. My background is mainly in infrastructure and energy investing, but about 4 months ago I took this new role as the Chief Sustainability and Risk Officer, so relatively new to the role. And so what I thought would be interesting today was to provide a little bit of an insight as to how Ayala Corp at the conglomerate level really thinks about sustainability and how we implement that into our investment strategy and business model going forward. And so as I am relatively new to the role, I thought it might be interesting to start actually with a little bit of a history as to where this sustainability term came from. We've heard from some really, really fantastic speakers today about all the incredible initiatives that different private institutions, of course, we started with how the government is also helping, but how a lot of private institutions are taking sustainability very, very seriously. And so I thought it'd be interesting to plot out where this really sort of came from and sort of what that movement is. So if we could possibly go to the next slide. Fortunately, a lot of the slides will have a lot of text, but bear with me as I kind of walk you through them. So this is a little bit of a timeline as to where this term for corporate sustainability really came from. And in my view, it really comes all the way back to 1953, where a gentleman called Howard Bowen wrote a book called Social Responsibilities of the Businessman. And in that book, he really starts to make a little bit of a case that companies don't only have a responsibility to the shareholders of that company, but actually there are other stakeholders around the company that the business should start taking into consideration and taking into account. And that's really where the term corporate social responsibility was first coined, or CSR. And at that point, most of the responsibility of companies was really one way, one direction. A company makes money, and then with some of those profits, it then starts to fund certain CSR initiatives. It was mainly philanthropic. There is still a lot of room for philanthropic activities and projects, but this is really mainly one way. A company should have a responsibility to fund projects outside. And that concept actually took on and started to sort of gain a lot of momentum until a very, very famous economist called Milton Friedman sees a lot of this happening in the world and decides to submit an op-ed piece to the New York Times in 1970 where he really coins his doctrine. And very, very, very famously, his doctrine really clarifies that in his view, actually the corporate responsibility of a business is not to stakeholders outside of the business, but is only to shareholders. Now, to be clear, he doesn't say that social and environmental issues are not important. He just thinks that a company shouldn't be the one truly addressing those. He thinks that a company's responsibility is really to generate profits, and then those profits should be given back to the shareholders, and then the shareholders can do with those profits what they want. And this created a pretty massive debate. You, of course, have in the 50s this concept of the CSR, where companies really need to start looking at some of the stakeholders outside. Friedman comes out in the 70s with this op-ed piece and sort of slaps that sort of right in the face. And this debate rages on over the next sort of few decades, but thankfully to a lot of people in sort of our profession, the stakeholder view starts to gain more traction, that companies really do have a responsibility outside from just purely generating profits for shareholders to some of the stakeholders outside. And so if we map that along, the term sustainable development, so as I starts out with sort of CSR, the term sustainable development really starts to pop up in the 80s. And the concept there, World Commission generates this report where it describes that sustainable development is defined as the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. That starts to sort of gain some traction. The triple bottom line concept, again, building on Bowen's original piece in the 50s, now maybe applying a different framework for companies that maybe in addition to economic, actually social and environmental frameworks should also be used when looking at investments. Finally, the term ESG that we're all so familiar with finally makes its appearance in the early 2000s. And then shared value creation, something that's very close to a lot of our hearts at Ayala Corp, where we're really now building on this, and instead of just looking at these as individual pieces, actually, could we be addressing social and environmental concerns through the actual business dealings of a company? And I'll expand a little bit on that as I progress. And as we see, the bottom right corner is actually the amount of chief sustainability officers that have been hired in top US companies over the last decade. And as we've seen, that amount has really skyrocketed because companies are taking this seriously and they want to figure out how to best address this. Okay, next slide. And so for me, the watershed moment, a lot of debate that's been happening on this as we've seen over the decades, but for me, the watershed moment happens in 2019, where the Business Roundtable, the group of very, 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 very large companies, mainly based in the US, finally comes and signs an agreement stating in black and white that actually their responsibility is not only to shareholders, but actually to stakeholders outside of those shareholders. And they sign that in black and white and sort of make that public. We actually have our own version of that in the Philippines with a Covenant for Shared Prosperity, very, very similar, again, outlining the responsibilities of privately held companies, not just to serve the interests of shareholders, but actually to serve other stakeholders as well. And so as we bring this all together, and this is why I think actually the sustainability movement, especially in private companies, is so exciting, I think in the past, the way that this has been seen is really looking at individual social projects, individual environmental projects that companies could potentially fund and maybe invest in, usually in a philanthropic way. But where I think sustainability is moving is actually combining these two very, very important initiatives, but really thinking about an economic pillar to that as well, to actually, no pun intended, make it sustainable and financially sustainable. So how can we bring all of those two things together and ensure that there is economic sustainability in that? And that's the case that I'll make as to how ultimately Ayala Corp invests and does business. So these are, sustainability in sort of a nutshell. Why is that important to the Philippine context? And if we could just go to the next slide. So amazingly, and I'm sure all of you are well aware of this, this country holds tremendous potential. So PwC in 2016 mapped out who the largest economies in the world were and tried to plot out what that would look like by the year 2050. And in that year, 2016, the Philippines was ranked as the 27th largest economy. And by their estimates, if everything goes to plan, by the year 2050, we'd be ranked as the 19th largest economy in the world. So that's part of the G20. So tremendous amount of growth that is expected in the Philippines over the next 26 years. So fantastic case. Now, however, there are, of course, a lot of challenges to that. And so if we go through some of those challenges on the environmental side, World Bank called out very clearly the potential damage to GDP that is there from climate change impacts. And then on the social front, especially in the Philippines, 1 in 4 children. So one of the big reasons why there is so much incredible opportunity in the Philippines is because of the youth and our incredibly young population, which is really there to sort of, at some point, drive the economy forward. But 1 in 4 children at the moment in the Philippines are considered stunted or shorter for their age because of malnutrition. And then we have one of the largest income inequality problems actually in ASEAN, in the Philippines. So incredible potential, but some huge challenges which are facing the country. And it's our belief that actually the corporate space has a big role to play in addressing some of these challenges to enable this fantastic opportunity and fantastic growth that is facing the Philippines. So if we go to the next slide, a lot of fantastic work has happened. We've seen today a lot of the fantastic initiatives that are happening with different sort of groups, and as I mentioned, on the governmental side as well. And so we've actually made, as a country, commitments to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by about 75% by 2030. I think you guys heard from some of the renewable energy developers yesterday, and just the incredible ecosystem that has been built in the Philippines, and full credit to the government for really establishing the context for that, to really develop our renewable energy assets in the country. And then, of course, the Extended Producers Responsibility Act, which just came in place. So a lot of opportunity and a lot of good work that is already happening, but the gap is still absolutely massive. That chart on the bottom right of the screen shows actually how much is invested in individuals at a government level. And if we compare to the US, this is per capita. It's about $30,000 that the government spends on each individual, and in the Philippines, that number is $938. Now, of course, we are a developing country, and there are a lot of gaps. But that gap is really where we feel that the private sector has a big role to play in helping to hopefully bridge that and really invest in services and ultimately the individuals in the Philippines. And so if I can pop on to the next slide. Again, a busy one, but bear with me on this. This is ultimately how we look at sustainability in Ayala Corp. And when taking on this role, one of the clear sort of challenges that I was given was so Ayala Corporation has a 190-year history, and I think the sustainability team's mandate or sort of view is how to ensure that this company could actually remain in place for another 190 years and ensure that it keeps doing some of the work that it is doing. And so that starts actually with a good foundation of compliance. Actually, little known fact, all publicly listed companies in this country, due to the sort of SEC mandate, are actually mandated to publish all of their sustainability work that they do every year in a sustainability report. A lot of companies then integrate that into an annual report. That's publicly available, and so anyone can really read. Thank you so much. anyone could really read about any publicly listed company's responsibilities and environmental and sustainable initiatives. The next part, which was mentioned today, and my title is Sustainability and Risk, a huge piece of that is very good risk management. There are a lot of risks that face a lot of the companies, especially in this part of the world, and so really ensuring that we are aware of them, measuring them, and then ultimately putting a plan in place to deal with them. Climate change, a lot of the issues that we've discussed on the social front, all of those are risks to companies that need to be addressed and tackled head on. But then finally, and as we come to sort of really the heart of Ayala Corp, it's really thinking about long-term value creation and building truly sustainable and inclusive businesses. And so, I'll go through a few of the examples, but our purpose statement very clearly is to build businesses that enable people to thrive. And if I could sort of walk through a couple of the examples of how we've done that onto the next slide. We've heard from two fantastic players in the real estate business today. The Ayala Group also participates in the real estate sector. Sorry, we could pop up to the next slide. So urban development, a big push for us through the Ayala Group. We have just an incredible footprint across 50 estates in the country, and we take that as a huge responsibility to keep building sustainable and good places to live and work, because that is something that is vital as we really invest in people's ability to thrive in this country. Financial inclusion, a very big theme for us across the group. So our investments through BPI and Globe, that has GCash, really has been a fantastic instigator of financial inclusion across the country, and they continue to push that extremely aggressively by offering new products. GCash has started to move into lending and insurance products and even investment products to really try to democratize financial inclusion so that everyone in the country has the ability to participate in the financial sector. And then basic services, which I'll spend the last bit of the chat on. Manila Water, for us, a fantastic example. In the mid-90s, the government opened sort of came to the private sector looking for a partnership to invest with the government into the water utility system of Manila Water. They decided to basically split Manila into two areas, the east and west zone, and we eventually bid on the east zone of Metro Manila. And at that time, the two sort of facts that I think are always worth calling out is 24/7 water availability in the east zone of Metro Manila was just over 25%. So only about a quarter of the people in the east zone of Metro Manila had 24/7 water. And the water losses were at about 63%. So of the water that starts at the source that ultimately makes it through to your house, 63% of that was being lost along the way, leaky pipes and sort of faulty connections. And in 2022, that number of 24/7 water availability was 99%, and the water losses were at about 13%, which is better than actually a lot of European cities. And so the key for us here is how can we invest in businesses that ultimately enable people to thrive? I think we can all agree that access to water 24/7 is a building block to allow people to really thrive. And how can we do that ultimately in a profitable way that also sustains the growth of the company? And then the final slide, just a few of the other basic services. And I think, next slide, please. I think Eric, who's the CEO of Acer, was here chatting to the group yesterday about the phenomenal work that they've been doing in the renewable energy space. Really fantastic work. And I believe he described the beginnings of Acer really at a time where there was not a lot of clarity as to how the renewables, specifically wind and solar spaces, were really going to develop in the country, but really taking a bet that sector was going to grow, and just the incredible success that they've had now delivering pure renewable energy to our different clients in the Philippines and actually abroad. Globe connectivity, very important building block to allow people to thrive. We saw that, of course, during the pandemic when everyone was stuck at home, but still the economy needed to sort of continue growing, and connectivity is a huge part of that. And then, our more recent investments in the health and education space, huge building blocks that are needed for the country to continue to grow. And so we're very excited about these newer businesses that we've started to invest in. So that's really me. If I could just sort of wrap up with a final slide. I hope that provided a little bit of an overview as to how we look at sustainability. in the group and a little bit of a history of how the sustainability movement has really grown. How important it is now for companies to be taking this very, very, very seriously. And I hope ultimately, and if we could just, next slide, please. I think the bottom line is really the one that I wanted to sort of leave you with. That the best examples of sustainability for us in enterprises are those that can provide financially viable, relevant, and meaningful solutions to serve the underserved. Ultimately, the underserved here being individuals that are not currently being served by the private sector, and maybe there is a business opportunity to truly sort of serve some of their needs. That's ultimately the thesis of how we invest at Ayala Corp. But again, thank you so much for the invite today. Truly, truly humbled and honored to be here, and looking forward to questions. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Jaime, please stay on stage. All right. We will be having the panel discussion after Jaime over here. Wow. Thank you. That was record time, by the way.
Good.
Record time. And I like how you were not responding too much to pressure with that little signboard going 3 minutes, 2 minutes.
Happy to help.
Okay, here's the thing. With that eye on so many companies, we got bank, health, real estate, malls, power, water, vehicles. That eye on so many.
Yeah.
And obviously, each company has its own demand.
Right.
And you do want to make sure, obviously, you are pushing sustainability efforts. Yes,
Right.
we see all that. How do you get to decide what gets what? Who gets, we're already here. This one, not so much.
Yeah.
But hey, we demand. What about you increase this one?
Yeah, great
Who
question.
gets the priority?
Great question. I mean, we're very, very thankful that the businesses that I called out are also are decently well developed at this point, actually have their own sustainability teams as well. And so they generate their own initiatives and sort of own needs. We really, at the group level, focus on new potential businesses that we can sort of focus on.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of collaboration. A big sort of value of having all of these groups is a lot of synergies that could be unlocked by just having these discussions. Maybe if one of the group companies is pushing an initiative that they find very, very important, maybe there are some of the other business groups that could benefit from that or benefit from some of the investment. So that's really our role to try to unlock some of that and some of those synergies.
Okay, I'm going to put you in the hot seat.
Sure.
Final question.
Sure.
When do you say no?
Yeah,
Everyone
great
can
one.
say, hey, it's a sustainability effort.
Yeah.
They're doing this there. They're doing that there. When do you say no?
Yeah, and I think honestly, for the sustainability movement, I think this is a very important one. And I come back to financial viability, actually. Okay. So trying to make an investment case for this. Looking at sustainable initiatives, these things don't need to generate necessarily a return in 1 year, 2 years, or even protect your return if we're looking at it from a risk standpoint. But eventually, this needs to come back.
It's always the long-term goal.
And I think that practice and developing that muscle for sustainability initiatives is very important if we want to keep pushing the sustainability movement forward, especially in the corporate space.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you for answering my
Thank you so
question.
much.
I'm going to ask you to stay here because we're going to put some seats. It is time for the panel discussion, and I will be inviting all our speakers this morning to join Jaime. Let's get comfortable on these seats. May I invite back on stage our friends, Raymond Rufino from NEO, Oliver Chan from Arthaland, and Mr. Anthony Gobb from Acer Philippines. Have a seat. Take a seat, please. We will be joined by an associate professor from the College of Social Sciences and Philosophy. Let's say good morning to Professor Rogelio Alicor Panao, who will be asking some key questions. And while the gentlemen are taking their seats, guess what? I have in my hands 10 winners of a tote bag already. So allow me to announce your names. Claim it outside, present the ID at the registration area. Winners are Maxine Publico, Maria Christine C., Trisha Ann Vega, Jake Uwanan, Stephanie Senon, Joseph Monzon, Ethan Buenaviaje, Anya Joy Vacunawa, Noel Tu Aragon or Arayon, and Lemuel Egot. Claim your tote bags outside, present an ID, okay? Hi, Professor. Wow, all gentlemen. Hello. Pleasure to be.
You're here.
I got my big boy
Rose
pants
among
on.
the turns.
Okay. Professor, I'm going to give this floor to you. Let's, of course, very, very interesting lineup.
Yep, interesting presentation.
Yeah.
It's always, I think, in my opinion, refreshing to hear what our industry leaders have been doing to achieve the sustainability goals. I mean, this is something, right? Although, if you permit me, instead of coming up with a lengthy discussion, is it okay to throw some questions?
Of course.
I have something, a few specific ones, if it's okay. Sir, our resource person from Acer, what do you do with? I'm curious, really. what do we do with old computers?
Okay, that's a good question.
Sorry for
The
that.
e-waste, yeah.
I hope it didn't
E-waste,
get you.
Yes. Actually, we have a big service center located in Paco, Manila. So all of the unrepairable components, especially motherboard, so we actually partner with a third-party organization for them to shred and eventually put it in a dump site, but on a process of being still sustainable. So meron silang specific process na we had a conversation for those third-party organization bago kami nag-decide alin yung pipiliin namin na based on our sustainability process. So we have a third-party organization na naka-tie up.
I have a follow-through before I proceed. Yeah. For Acer, for Sir, our representative from Acer.
Sir Gob.
Just call me Toti.
Toti, Sir Toti, okay. This is very interesting. An interesting point given was Acer actually operationalizes commitment to human rights as an indicator of sustainability goal. I think that's interesting, something that you don't usually, that's something new, right? Human rights. So I'm curious, really. I hope you don't get offended by this question. Does it mean that Acer, for example, avoid supplying to countries that are of a different sort of regime, not necessarily Democrat? So sorry for the question. Also, does it mean that Acer sticks to a very human rights-oriented employment practice?
Okay. Yes. So our ODM actually, to be honest, is based in China. Okay. I'm not sure if you heard there are different not that good practices sa China. ODM is the one who manufacture the components like memory, motherboard. So they will be the one to build based on the research and development team of Acer. To be honest, yes, in China, meron mga certain news na, di ba, mataas yung suicide attempts kasi they're very forced in terms of labor eh. But what we did, I think starting 2015, we selected those ODM that will really partner with us. So if this certain ODM is in a way notorious for not good in terms of labor practices, it's out of the picture already. Yes. That's part of the framework actually. It's beyond actually sustainability, but it's part of the framework on how our R&D, because we have 300 R&D. R&D is the DNA for our product portfolio. And they will be the one to coordinate to those ODM to build and manufacture the laptops, the desktop, or even projectors or monitors. So we have, correct, Isa, we have due diligence in auditing based on labor practices.
So there you go, the cycle of business is always. It's not just where labor or expenses are affordable, but really you want to make sure that everything, especially when it comes to the human factor, is still met.
That's really nice to hear. I have a quick question to our resource person from Arthaland.
Okay, Oliver.
Okay, sir.
Kala ko hindi na ako matatawag.
Sir, I understand you have had collaborations with the local government units, especially in projects involving repairs and constructions of public schools. I was wondering, by work with LGUs, what do these LGUs give in return exactly? I suppose these are not free. And when working with governments, you usually follow some rules, like rules pertaining to procurement, bidding, etc. These are not free, right? So
These are free actually. The repair of the public schools are free. It's a program wherein we, together with the suppliers that we normally work with, got in touch with the local government. To be quite frank, they didn't ask anything in return.
Okay.
In Cebu City, the first time we visited, the congressmen were there, the councilors were there, the school board was there, and they helped us identify the proper public school to start with. So, procurement-wise, we were the ones who delivered all materials, and they only took care of labor. This way, there's transparency in terms of the materials to be used for the public schools, and at the same time, we have a specific target as to when the public schools will be finished.
It is part of some sort of CSR effort?
Well, yes, it's a CSR effort, but I guess in terms of CSR, what we have in mind is how do we bring sustainability to the students? That's our main thing.
So it's educational by nature too.
Yes. So we already even allocated an area there for them to be taught how to plant organic and indigenous plants.
Is it specific to one particular sector, like in this case, education?
Yes, correct.
Educational institutions for now.
For now.
For now.
Okay. I have one question for our representative.
Mr. Rufino.
Mr. Rufino, yes. So there was a mention about green buildings. For someone like me, green really is like, I'm sorry for this, but vague. What do we really mean by?
It's a color.
Yes, beyond being a color, of course. Yes. Green office, does it mean it simply has to meet certain levels of lowered carbon footprints, or does it also involve changing the consumer habits of your residents?
I think what's a typical day for someone reporting in a green office? Like, what's it like? Well, when you enter the lobby, will that help paint a better picture, Raymond?
Yeah, I can go to that. So just on your question, which is, I think I mentioned it earlier. So I think when I talk about green buildings, I always try to talk about the three elements which I think are really important for a building to become green, right? That's healthy, that is, net zero or heading toward net zero, and resilient. So those, I think, are three. For me, if you ask me, if your building does not promote the health and well-being of the people there, if the building is not on its decarbonization journey, which means you're not trying to reduce the power, you're not trying to offset the carbon you have, and if you're not resilient, then for me, you're not a green building. I think those are fundamental components of being a green building. Now, because you have such a range, what I generally always say is that's why I think certification is important. Because when you say, if I adopt strategy XYZ, does that make me a green building? Actually, it's a very holistic. If you look at the green building rating tools, ang daming parameters niyan. It's not just water, it's not just power, it's not just management. It's not just materials. There's so many things. And you have to look at it holistically. You can't say, I'll just fix the energy problem. I don't care about indoor air quality na. Hindi pwede. It has to be holistic. So I think the rating tools are a great way. If you want to really know if a building is green or not, if it's certified, if it's BEDE, LEED, or those certified, then that's a good measure that medyo green siya. How do you experience it?
Let's take it from the point of view of a person reporting to work, just so we can drive home.
So like any great technology, I believe great sustainability should almost be invisible, right? The experience you go in, right? Because you have so many aspects to it. If you come to a building, like for example, talk about net zero, right? If you go to work in a net zero certified office building, you won't know it. You won't know it. You won't feel it versus going to just a regular office building. You won't notice it. But that's the beauty. All the work has gone on behind the scenes so that the work that you do, the experience you have, comes at the least minimum impact to the environment in terms of carbon. So all of that work is actually invisible, di ba? So you won't notice it. So when you go to a building, indoor air quality, huge area, you won't notice right away na, uy, ang galing ng air quality ng office or building na to. You won't know it unless you have an air quality sensor or you're sensitive and you start sneezing or coughing because it's just so bad.
That's a good indicator.
That's a negative indicator.
Yeah.
But in most cases, you won't know that it's there. But if it's done well, if the air quality is good, then you won't be sneezing, you won't be coughing, you won't be getting sick. So I like to say that, in technology, diba? Oy, how do you know if this technology is really good? I always feel the best technology, even the best sustainability, it just results in a great experience. And it's behind the scenes. You don't need to necessarily know the details or how it works, but it's all working there. And the result is a great experience, but at much, much less cost to the environment and other stakeholders.
It's how you live in it. Yeah. Thank you for that, Raymond.
I have a question for Martin, right?
Jaime.
Okay, this one, the reference to Friedman is really shall I say, interesting and at the same time quite shaky. Right? I was wondering, pardon for the question, but
Please.
I don't suppose Ayala Corporation is adhering to this principle.
Well, no, that's a great question, and I think it's sort of an ongoing debate. So we don't. We think that ultimately there are other stakeholders in addition to shareholders that should be served, and we see that as really a corporate purpose. It's a fascinating to sort of debate. Friedman was a very, very articulate individual, and we're very sort of lucky that a lot of his stuff is still on YouTube, and very, very interesting to sort of hear his kind of views and sort of points. But ultimately, it's not a view that we agree with, and go more in the sort of Bowen school, where there are ultimately other stakeholders that have to be served, and that we ultimately have that responsibility because of the position that we're in to serve those other stakeholders.
Professor, just to clarify, can we repeat that quote for the sake of everybody? What is this you're alluding to?
Oh.
The previous...
Yeah. So Milton Friedman's sort of doctrine, where he basically claims that a company's only responsibility is to shareholders, just to create
Only to
only to
shareholders, yeah.
shareholders.
But you are saying it's to everyone outside as well.
Our view is that, yes. Yeah.
Can I add a quick point there? I think a company that is losing money consistently is not sustainable. So let's be very clear. People think that profit is bad. Some people are very, you should only be doing good. You shouldn't be making any money. It's really important that you generate profit, because the long-term sustainability, your ability as an organization to keep on doing good and to survive, is directly linked to that ability to generate value and profit. If you lose money consistently for many years, you're not going to exist at a certain point, right? So I think it's very important when we talk about sustainability that the financial side of it, that Jaime mentioned, so many of the advocates and purists downplay the importance of that aspect. It is very important.
And actually, one of the speakers yesterday has a joint title, CFO and Sustainability Head or Lead. So yes, it does come in hand. So yes, back to you, Professor.
Just quick follow-through. And I think this question applies to all of us, I think. So anyone can actually respond to this. My understanding of sustainability goals, even in the context of corporations and organizations, is one that goes beyond actually your crowd. It is one that should be imbued or probably ingrained into the consumer side. So my probably the last question before she wraps up. In the next, let's say 5 to 6 years, do you have future plans to actually ingrain or encourage customers to adhere to sustainability goals in the same way that you are adjusting your products?
Ingrain, implement, leave them with no choice. Different kinds of words can come into play here. Jaime, go ahead.
Sure, happy to. I think we have to, right? I mean, if we ultimately want to be addressing a lot of these issues, we need to be communicating to our customers that it makes sense to acquire this. And I think in the past, the conversation's really been around, would individuals be willing to pay a little bit more for this? And I think a lot of evidence suggests that even though people say that they do, ultimately they don't. And so I think it's on us to get more creative on that and ultimately figure out new business models that can really show customers the true value. And so they're not just paying for this just because of the sort of apparent green, but because it's really providing value back to them. I think that's our responsibility for sure.
We're going to go right to left. Go ahead, Ollie.
On our end, basically, we look long term. And that's why we focus on students, we focus on the younger generation. When you talk about sustainability, you talk about leaving a legacy, which is why our tagline is sustainable legacies. Right? And when you talk about students, that's where 15, 20, 30 years from now, they're going to be the leaders of their countries, right? And it's for them to live a more sustainable life. And for us to educate them while we still can, and for us to teach them how sustainability truly is, I think that's the play of our company. I mean, we can earn less today, but still be profitable, right? But if we get the future generations to love what we do and to understand what we do, then we take care of the company for the next 50, 60 years. Because they're our future customers, right? So that's how we think about it, and that's why we focus mainly towards the younger generation.
Thanks for that, Ollie. Toti?
Actually, that's a big question for Acer. What's next after Acer? Because even our competitors, In terms of the roadmap, it's almost the same. So we need to put a differentiator. And that's where sustainability efforts is in the picture. Because for Acer, actually profitability and balancing profitability and sustainability is hard for us. But we need to thrive. That's why for Acer, long-term mission for the next 5 years is to really amplify our sustainability efforts from product, from sales, and from marketing. That's why it's very evident last year we had our Make Your Green Mark campaign, which is for us to amplify our efforts that we are not just a PC company. It's more on giving value to our customer as an added value for our portfolio by having sustainability products and our efforts for our ESG.
Thanks, Toti. And Raymond?
So I would answer that question. I think we have, I would say, because we're in office leasing, no? So our customers are mostly corporations and multinationals. I think we have two groups of tenants, right? Group one are, I would say, the enlightened ones who are already on their sustainability journey. We love those tenants because when they come to us because we are green, they resonate, they align with us. In fact, they challenge us, they inspire us, they push us, and they bring a lot of good ideas. So in some ways, we don't need to ingrain anything with them because they're actually the ones giving us a lot of input and feedback and suggestions, and we work very well with them. I guess to your point, where we spend a lot of effort is on the second group, where there are a lot of companies who they know it, they want to do it, but they don't really have a lot in place yet. And so we work very closely with them, and you'll be surprised at how that could range everything from simply waste management, such a simple thing. Some companies really struggle with this, to a lot of events. So we have a lot of events at NEO where we engage with all of the different employees. So, for example, on Friday, we're doing a coastal cleanup with our tenants. We're actually paying the cost to bring everyone, and we're going to go and do some cleanup of the coastline. So I think there's a lot of different ways you can work with your partners. I think for us, we like to learn from those who are already on that journey, but those who need a little bit more help, well, then we're there to support them. And that could be either at the company level or even at the employee level.
Nice. And I like how Professor Panao is like smiling and nodding. Good group of gentlemen this morning, right? A round of applause for our panelists, everybody. That's our morning session. Gentlemen, may I ask you to please stand and smile for a photo op, a group photo op with Professor Panao. After which, I will be asking our Manila Bulletin team to please stand by. Mr. Philip Kunhing, Mr. Jordan Tan, and Irish Lorenzo. Please join this group on stage for a photo after this first one. So, gentlemen, step forward, please. May I ask you to step forward? There you go. And smile for the camera. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I will be announcing more names of our special prizes. Sorry, Philip, before you do come on stage, can I have just the speakers first? Thank you again, just the speakers and Professor. Again, here you go, gentlemen. Center stage. Nice, tough questions, but all our gentlemen speakers answered with grace. So thank you. Please smile for the photo. Again, I will be announcing prizes, winners of our prizes. Thank you for registering and answering the online feedback form. And now we invite our Manila Bulletin team. Come on up. Philip Kunhing, Jordan Tan, and Irish Lorenzo. And while they're having the photo, here are the set of tote bag winners. We also have Jasmine Boquiron, Alea Casey Lanuza, Mary Luis Caballero, Adonica Villa, Mitos Peña Verde, Kiana Baranda, Jasmine Tuvilla, Joaquin Banlagas, John Bacalinaw, and Mike Jordan Ledesma. Claim your tote bags after the afternoon session. After the afternoon session at the registration area. Okay, so thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Irish. To all of our speakers from today's morning session, thank you very, very much. Lunch will be served outside. No eating and drinking inside the auditorium. I have more winners, this time of Cadbury chocolates. Jessa Mangyao, Michelle Gallardo, Rachel Tolentino, Giovanni Gulinaw, Jaha or Jana Kaasi, Shaira June Gadot, Jav John Irshad, Joseph Retumban, Ray John Bench Almendras, and Abner Alejandro. Claim your chocolates from Cadbury again outside. Yeah, I know. We'll give you. The speakers get free ones. Thank you, Professor. And again, you can claim your prizes after the afternoon session. I do have more. I want to say something on behalf of Coca-Cola, who is giving us prizes today. And I'm going to give a roll call as well. CEU Manila, CEU Malolos, CEU Makati, FPJ Youth, San Sebastian College, Compass, UP Cifal Asian Center, NU Manila, National Teachers College, UP Open U, University of Batangas, the Manila Hotel, Philtrust Bank, UP SERP or School of Urban and Regional Planning, UP College of Engineering, and UP College of Law. A round of applause for you. Thank you for being in attendance today, both online and face-to-face in our auditorium. We have a lot more prizes to give out: Cadbury chocolates, tote bags, Royal products, Coke Zero products, Coca-Cola products, and IKEA GCs worth 15,000 pesos each. Redemption of these prizes will be after the afternoon. 5,000 pesos each. Sorry guys, 5,000 pesos each. Who wrote this number one? Okay, here we go. 5,000 pesos each. That's still something from IKEA. Come on. And again, you can claim it after the afternoon session at the registration area. By the way, Coca-Cola recognizes their responsibility to help solve the global plastic packaging waste issue by continuously upholding their commitment to their world without waste vision. And this is by giving maximum efforts towards a circular economy. The company aims to make 100% of its packaging recyclable in a global scale by 2025 and use at least 50% recycled materials in their packaging by 2030. They will help collect the equivalent of every can and bottle that they sell by 2030. A round of applause for Coca-Cola because they believe they can come through constant, effective efforts with your help. So we got our tote bag winners. We have our set of Cadbury and other tote bag winners. More Cadbury winners. Did I say this already? Alicia Chua. Bago. Okay. Alicia Chua, Rose Ann Mendigo, Elaine Marcalinas, Mary Rosel Sorongan, Ron Harvey Langreo, Arvin Espinosa, Lisa Rose Abig, Jemima Sabondo, Jillian Wynn Amba, and Ana Cristina Isabella Manubay. Give yourselves a round of applause. You get Cadbury chocolates. And that's pretty much it for me. I'm Isa Litton, your host. I'll turn you over to Sam Thurman and Mika Pineda for the afternoon session. But for now, lunch is served outside. Help yourselves, students. We will resume at 1 p.m. for the afternoon session. This is the Manila Bulletin Sustainability Forum, Day 2.